Welcome to the Modern Mystic podcast, where we help you make your spirituality an actuality. I am your host, Kilkenny, who's an elite coach, yoga and meditation professor, and priestess, psychic medium, astrologer included, who's on a mission for 20 years now to help folks find more meaning, mindfulness, and magic in their day-to-day life. Today, I am so thrilled to be welcoming a friend of the podcast who's been on before several times, the brilliant Natalie Levin, who is a professional astrologer and so many other things. The reason I want to really have her on today again, she might be one of my top. I think you're my top guest probably
Wow.
in visitation, and your numbers are always out the roof because you are so eloquent and yet profound in making astrology practical, understandable. So, folks, get ready to have this episode actually change your life in meaningful ways for sure, as these conversations with Natalie always do. And I always get that feedback. So, Natalie,
Wow.
welcome. Welcome to the Modern Mystic podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the planet Uranus, which is very active today. We're recording this on January 11th, 2024, and Uranus is inviting a lot of volcanoes, earthquakes, and lightning bolts of change to suddenly appear in our lives, so that I happen to be able to get on this time frame with Kilkenny. So what a gift from the planets. Thank you, high vibration of Uranus.
Well, I love that so much. And we can talk about that, right? How you and I almost both drafted off this energy of Uranus, I think, to jump on this episode. But before we do, can you give me, it can be really pithy because you've answered it before, but in this moment in time, what does it mean to you to be a modern mystic?
Oh, I love when you ask this question. Oh my goddess. To be a modern mystic invites me to use all of the tools that are available, both in the realms that are beyond what my senses can see, feel, hear, taste. So we could call that the non-3D. Can I use all of those supports as well as the supports available in the 3D realm, including things like, for me, antidepressants, um, enjoying delicious food, connection with people that are also doing awakening work. Can I use all of those supports to live as fully and with as many kaleidoscopic colors this particular human lifetime that I have been granted?
Yes. Ah, I just got the chills and I started jumping up and down at the same time. I love the word. First of all, I've never heard anyone use the word kaleidoscopic, and I'm such like a word, like complete obsessive, complete wordsmith and complete I love
Yes.
word everything. So that's a brilliant as many colors, right? And I love how you talked about all the tools, because that's the thing about being a modern mystic. We understand that that is the beauty of this modern age. We have access to all these tools, of course, if we're privileged in many ways. And I,
Yes.
acknowledge the privilege that we have, and not everybody has that privilege. When we don't shun these modern tools, but see them as gifts and pathways towards support, like you said, then our mysticism opens up, and our human embodiment experience of life, like you said, becomes so much more bright and colorful, kaleidoscopic. Wow. Thank you for that answer. I love that so much. Okay, so we started with Uranus. And so let's just like talk to the listeners about kind of what that means, and maybe start from an anecdotal place of, okay, how did Uranus have anything to do with the two of you meeting today and talking and doing this episode? Because the astrology of what's happening right now is like a weather pattern, is how I think of it. And so we can ignore that it's going to rain out, and then we get wet and nothing horrible happens, chances are. But if we take the umbrella, if we look for the rainbows, right? If we pay attention to that weather, then we can live so much more joyfully. We can be so much more effective and potent. That's how I think of it. So that's sort of a little pithy synopsis of how I feel like you can make astrology really practical. And to me, Uranus and the different planets are archetypes that in different moments of life are stronger or less strong, that live outside ourselves, within ourselves. They're each a part of our psyche, each planet. And so when we know what the weather of them, what's happening with them, like you said, Uranus was very strong right now. We
Yeah.
can think about, oh, what's the Uranus energy outside of myself and what's the Uranus energy within myself, and then work with that weather. So
Beautiful.
what do you think? How do you think
Well,
of it?
when I know that there is going to be a very strong Uranian energy in the forecast, the weather forecast, I invite myself to stay very loose and soft as much as possible in terms of my expectations that things are going to go a certain way. I invite myself to be able to pivot on a dime,
Yes.
and around themes that, and it can also be, and also hold myself gently, because Uranus energy can be very affecting of the nervous system. So it's possible that when there's a lot of Uranus energy happening in the heavens, I might feel extra edgy, extra anxious. And can I hold this crackly electricity that is myself and also out in the world tenderly and gingerly, as I suddenly, like a practical example of how this has shown up in the past 36 hours is plans that I had made completely had to be canceled and changed. You had someone lined up on this podcast, and that person canceled, and then you reached out to me immediately, and it's lightning bolts. It's that fast. Lightning bolts. Hey, Natalie, do you want to be on my podcast tomorrow? And I'm lightning bolting that swiftly. Yes. And that's all I wrote, like capital letters. Yes. Uranus. Boom. And it's happening. And then another lightning bolt and volcano exploding is boom, Natalie, your child's school is closing early because the electricity, which is Uranus, went out. And boom, can Natalie find something to a backup plan so that she can still do the podcast? And yes, it happened. So it's like, okay, as long as I am staying flexible and soft, I can go with these pivots that Uranus brings. If I stay really, really stubborn and stiff, could knock me out much more. How
Yes.
does that land?
So great. So great, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people listening, might read about astrology or be
Mm-hmm.
listening to different, forecasts,
Yeah.
podcasts, horoscopes, whatever you call it, and are engaging in. So let's start with these planets, because we already made this foray into Uranus. Okay. So we all have this energy of Uranus. Uranus is about welcoming change, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about pivoting. It's about taking care of our nervous systems, like you said so beautifully. And how do we do that? Associate with the nervous system. And when stuff happens that's challenging quickly, how do we respond? And also downloads, revelations, sparks, insights, right?
Yeah.
And so that energy lives as potentiality within us. That's a part of each person listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you hear, as Natalie discussed, in the outer world, okay, the weather's going to be very Uranian, you can think of working with the things Natalie described. I love that. Let's go on to some other planets. So let's take the next more, let's say, intense planet, shall we? And then we'll work to maybe the more mild or more copacetic planets. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, so when Pluto comes around, right now in time and space, Pluto's changing signs. Yes. I love Pluto. It's actually my second, not that you should have favorites. And I'm a Libra, so lots of Libra. My charts, so I always have like 5 favorites of everything. But yes! I love, after Jupiter, I love Pluto. And I've gotten to love Pluto more and more. So Pluto, talk to me, please, about your experience of what Pluto is within a person as a psychological, psychospiritual archetype, and then the energy on the outside in the outer world and spheres when Pluto is really prominent in the weather pattern, so to speak, of astrology.
Which it very much is now. Pluto is, for me, the opportunity, the invitation for, if I'm having a loud Plutonian energy happening in my life, first of all, the invitation for me is to know that this is not an overnight fix. It is
So
me
good.
walking this path of, oh, suddenly I'm in the underworld and I see the shadows and the darkness and the parts of myself that I have really not wanted to acknowledge because they are taboo and they are secret, and like the fact that I contain an inner Hitler, the fact that there is a part of me that understands the person who kills her brother, that I start to actually shine light on that part of my psyche so that it doesn't come out sideways and take away the choice from me as I shine light on that, those Plutonian realms. Pluto also is related to power. I might be more in a position of power about those tendencies in myself so that they don't overtake me and I am overpowered, Pluto shadow side, by
Yeah.
them. And I mean, it's also incredible. Pluto transits and Pluto energy can be, I am nonstop for like, it can feel like a 7-year realm of being in a Pluto transit. That's the word that's coming up for me for some reason. And I
Mm.
dive into, maybe I become curious about psychotherapy. Maybe I am very interested in maybe something about my life has a very close encounter with death. And I come back from that. Either someone around me leaves his or her body, or I am almost about to, and I come back with a new way of relating to the process of actually still being alive.
Mm.
And for the collective, it feels very much like we are on again, we're recording this as Pluto is about to move into Aquarius, which he'll be for like the next 25 years. So this will be relatable for the next 25 years. And things that come up for me around this are how am I going to Aquarius is connection and interconnectivity. How am I going to use the fact that I am here with, I think the number is 7 billion other people on this planet, and remember that I actually am connected to you all, and can I step into feeling empowered around that as opposed to feeling disempowered? What does that look like? For me, it can even feel like when I'm walking down the street, smiling at people, which can be some people think is really strange, but what usually happens is the person smiles back in some sort of a reflection of me. It's genuine. I'm not like like faking it. I'm really happy to see people, and I know that I tend to be a little Pollyanna. I know that it's in my chart too, like a little ebullient, and it can be annoying that I make up that it can be annoying for some people that I can appear very cheerful. And it comes back to me, that Pluto in Aquarius, that power of connecting to everyone else and also therefore to the all that is, this collective unconscious and consciousness that Carl Jung really said is always there. I am connected to all of you in some realm. And I've heard recently that most of us only can can see 4% of what is actually around us all the time.
That is
So,
so Plutonian too, right? Like
yeah.
it's so, because Pluto is just, to piggyback on your gorgeous pontification of Plutonic energy. Pluto is all about the unseen realms. It's about
Mhm.
invisible energy. Like you
Yes.
said, psychology and,
Mm,
all those themes that are very
mm,
scorpionic, sex, death,
mhm,
transformation, big sums of money,
mhm,
taxes,
mhm.
um, fluids, like exchanging fluids that,
Yeah.
kind of like the feeling, not the seeing.
Yeah.
And so I love what you said. And
Mm,
in the way of this conversation and where it's going too, I want to orient people that Pluto is ruled by Scorpio. So
yes.
if you are a Scorpio, or you know what that means, you have scorpionic energy in your chart, right? You have a connection to Pluto, just as when we spoke of Uranus a little bit ago, that's associated with Aquarius.
Mhm.
So Aquarius rules that planet. And so there's an energy and there's a connection, there's a relationship. It's not they're synonymous, but there's, right, like a relationship, a
Yes.
symbiotic kind of way about those two. the planet and then the sign of the planet. They're kind of like BFFs, right? That's how I think of it. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I also, when I see Pluto, it immediately in my inner world, it goes into these deep, dark, blood red colors come up for me around Pluto, and also
Mm,
like a really, really profound, like olive green that like it reminds me of the color in the emojis that happen when you're making an emoji of vomiting, like I'm nauseous, like that color, because Pluto
mhm,
is really the deepest, our deepest viscera, like, and actual, yeah, the fluids in the body, like Kilkenny was talking about. And then that is all so scorpionic, and I love Scorpio energy when I see people who have it in their charts, because I immediately make up a story that they can bear
mm,
the things that we're not supposed to talk about, and it makes me want to be around people who have a lot of that energy because I feel
mm.
safe. Like, I can't horrify you.
Yes. Yes, that's such a gift. That's why, scorpionic people make great psychologists, right? Like because they're
Yes.
such witness space holders
Mm-hmm.
and bearers of hard
Mm-hmm.
things. So really, I love how you put that. And I always think about Pluto particularly, and I want to even say another thought for people listening, because some people will
Mm.
be newer to astrology, or you might be
Yes.
totally new, and then we have some people who are really, really seasoned in their astrological
Yes.
understanding. So the thing is that with Pluto energy, like Natalie said, it's about going to the deep, darkest caverns of oneself, right? We
Mm-hmm.
all have the possibility and the invitation to do that in life, and the muck and the the mucus and the puke and the things that the shadow essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And yet when we accept that dance of the divine, if we do, then we come out of the cavern. I always think like a miner comes out and he or she's
Yes.
covered in black, but
Mm-hmm.
then they have gold. So you return when you're
Yes.
brave enough to do that or hold space for others, you allow for the most valuable thing, because it's those hardships in life that suck to go through, but that make us more golden, right? And also strong like gold. So that's also
Mm-hmm.
how I think of Pluto.
It's beautiful.
And,
Yes.
and then like there's the people who are very seasoned in astrology who might think, okay, well, I know a lot of that, but have you looked at your chart or learned about, are there any of these planets, and we'll speak of all of them, that are next to your sun, your moon, or rising, right? Because a lot of people, when I read their charts, they like, oh yeah, I'm a, Pisces sun and an Aries moon and a, Aquarius rising, whatever it is. But then I'll be like, oh, did you know you have Venus sitting on your sun? And they're like, I do. Or do you know you have Pluto opposite your sun? And
Oh.
there's an energy, and they go, I do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
knowing about these planets, these archetypal energies
Mm-hmm.
that land in our chart in a very specific way, that give us information about our superhero powers and our challenges and how to overcome them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so find out, listeners, does your sun, moon, rising, right? Are they sitting near or opposite or in relationship to any of the planets? And that will give you a whole Netflix series to dive into.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And if your listeners are like, how do I find that out? One way could be to have a session with Kilkenny or with me. We both do work with clients on their astrology charts one-on-one. And also if you have any friends who would be able to say, I know how to look this up. I know how to look up this in your chart and see what it's called, a conjunction, when a planet is close to another planet. You can say to your friends who like love astrology, can you tell me if I have anything conjunct my sun? And let them tell you. It's can be very, very so empowering to know that if your sun, for example, is, let's pretend it's intertwined with Pluto, that the suspicion you've had all along that you are a very powerful person and you have perhaps a lot of charisma, and when you walk into a room, people notice you, will be validated. It's the opposite of gaslighting. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yes.
oh, that's why, like, I'm mysterious and people gravitate towards me and I just feel like this is the way I am. But there's actually some context to it planetarily.
Yes. 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 Well, I mean, it's so amazing because over the course of my life, I had been around many astrologers, Vedic astrologers, Placidus astrologers, all sorts. And I had been given lots of little tidbits about my chart. Cut to had my first official reading in French when I was 20. So, and I didn't speak French that well. So that was such a fascinating experience. Cut to my Saturn return, I had another reading. The whole point is I went through a long journey, like a lot of people listening, of just piecemealing the astrology, and I learned a ton. However, when I learned about, like no one really mentioned in the hour session I had or the 5 minutes here and there my whole life about, like, for example, I have that conjunction, and maybe that's why you said it. Pluto, yes. I know, I knew you did that so intentionally because you're so intentional. When I finally found out, like, oh, Pluto's on my sun, no one ever mentioned that to me in a reading. But, like, when you give a reading, like, one, it's like there's so much to say. The astrologer could sit there for 10 hours, right? There's so much.
Yes.
And two, like in my case, I think people were afraid to tell me that. Like, I don't think people like that's my synopsis. And so, because that's an intense it's a very intense conjunction. Yes. It's not like your sun sitting next to Venus or having conjunction with, right? It's not. However, when I learned about that and I studied that, and it was like you said, so helpful in understanding myself and then moving forward understanding myself, it's just incredible. And then that's when I fell in love with Pluto. What about you? Yes. Do you have anything conjunct sun and rising?
Yes, I have. My chart has, my sun is at 15 degrees. Now, for those of you listening, there are 30 degrees in every astrology sign, and then each degree has 60 minutes attached to it. So my sun is at 15 degrees 36 minutes of Pisces, and my Mercury is at 15 degrees 38 minutes of Pisces. So
wow. That's why you're so smart. True.
So, for your listeners, what that means is I am completely intertwined with the messenger of the gods, is one way to say it. And it depending on how I pull my chart, it's either in the 8th house or the 9th. So it could be either I am here in the death realms with you, let's go there, let's talk about it, or I am traveling, I'm the teacher. Both and feel right to me. So with Mercury, which rules the way our minds work and how we communicate, what the story I make up is that when you are hearing me speak, you are getting fully me. Like I'm not able to compartmentalize because my communication is utterly entwined with the being in the middle of our solar system that is big enough to contain 1.3 million planet Earths. So that is a lot of mercurial communication energy that you witness when you're hearing me or seeing me speak. I'm very authentic.
Yes, you totally one of your superhero powers for sure. Right, and what we're speaking to, friends listening and listeners who want to go deeper in this, is that Mercury, she's talking about the qualities of the planet Mercury. We all have them. She said, it has to do with our mind, the way that we think, our mental capacities. So we all have in our chart Mercury somewhere, right? It's a aspect of ourself. Each planet is a part of ourself. We have all these planets. However, Natalie's is sitting on top of, literally sandwiched on top of her sun. Sun is, to put simplistically, your personality, how you shine, right? That's how I think of it, your ego. And so the way that she shines in this world is very much married to, it's like in a deep, loving relationship with Mercury. You can't really separate them. Yeah. And people with this, I have a couple coaching clients who have this. One's like a brilliant doctor. Like, they're all brilliant because Mercury's the mind, and how, and if the sun is shining its light through the Mercury, and they're kissing, they're like French kissing in your chart, right? It's just going to make you super smart and very loquacious and a very good, fast thinker and speaker. So I love that. So that's Mercury, your mind and how the mind works. Let's go to another planet. You pick.
Saturn. Let's go to Saturn. We're starting with the heavier energies, the energies that I don't like to say bad or good, but they invite lot of growth
I
opportunities.
love that. they
Yeah,
the
because they can
karmic
get
burning opportunities.
totally like you're in the crucible when Saturn comes along and you're having some sort of a Saturn energy in your chart. Um, there is really an opportunity to take off any rose-colored glasses that you might be holding around where Saturn is landing, to see it's Saturn is not juicy. It's like, okay, we're going to be austere and create some structures and systems around this. If you've been trying to like manipulate your way or fudge your way through something, Saturn will say, "Oh no, that's actually not going to work anymore. I'm here to like you actually have to work. You have to get your hands in there and figure it out." And it reminds me of the fact like one of my car headlights burnt out and I didn't feel like taking the car to the dealer and I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out myself. And I it is not my natural ability to do that. And I went on YouTube and looked up how to change this specific light bulb and I actually did it. And it was like getting your hands on there, touching it. And I felt prouder of that moment than when I sang at Carnegie serious because it was so not like singing opera is so like it's just like nothing like filing my nails, but changing a car headlight, I had to take so many parts of me that I had never muscles that I'd never used before, and I was like, I'm amazing. So that feels Saturnian to me because it's dry. It's not like this is easeful. It comes like an easy talent. No, no.
That's such a great story. And I love picturing you changing a car headlight. Wow. And props to you because I'm similar.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd rather
Yes.
talk to thousands of people live than do that.
Same. Same. So how did that example land for you?
Oh, it's just brilliant because it's just what you said. Like Saturn is the energy within ourselves that to me I think of it like the boss, like the high school principal, like the check-in, the karmic police that is the part of you that is interested in following rules or willing to because it's about rules, it's about your bones, and it's about, to me, your main karmic lesson. So like when people often come to me for readings, I'm curious for you, often Saturn in their chart is very activated, like more than any other planet. Like they're having a lot of people will have heard their Saturn return. I had a woman yesterday, she was having just the beginning of her Saturn return and she's like, I don't know why, but I felt like having a reading, right? So it's that soul's longing to, in my mind and my belief, fulfill its contract to learn the hardest karmic lessons. And it's that impulse within oneself that says, I want to do this, even though the ego says, no, fuck, I don't want to learn this. I don't want to go through this, but it's the soul like, yes, because you're here to learn. And so like to me, changing a car headlight would be so deep. I would have to dig it within myself. Oh my God. Like literally, I mean, I would have to face a lot of issues within myself, right? And stories. So it sounds like a menial kind of, just even for someone who's good at car headlights, right? That wouldn't be anything. And that wouldn't be a Saturn moment for them. But maybe it would be speaking in front of or singing like you in Carnegie Hall in front of 1 million people, right? They'd never do that. But what would they have to face to do that? That is what Saturn wisdom is. What are the questions? What are the limited belief stories that you tell yourself that you can do or not do things? What does fear tell you? So it's everything in all the ways you limit yourself, to me too, is your Saturn energy, that when we break through those limitations, then we are more free. As humans, we're more empowered. So that's how I think of Saturn with your
and
story.
for those listeners, for those of you listening who are around the age 28, 29, 30 and have been through that, you have been through a Saturn return. You might have been through a second one, which happens around 57, 58, 59-ish. And usually something really big has shifted in your life and you have stepped into a new realm of authority. Like you get married, you get divorced, you start a school, you end school, you start a new job, you have a child, someone close to you dies. It's really a stepping into a new realm. The
Yes.
boundary, the door is closed to one part of your life and something new has opened.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, and often like when I do
Mm.
readings, I'll look at dates where Saturn has been influential in their chart in the past and kind of ask the client, okay, like what was going on around this time in your life? And piece it
Mm.
together with the client. Okay, this is what I learned during that time. And no client
Mhm.
ever has said to me, I don't know. In all the readings I've done, like
Mm.
there's always, like you said, some rite of passage, something happening,
Yeah.
and then you kind of think, oh, well, I had to deal with anxiety at that point in my life. That's
Mhm.
the first time I felt, acutely anxious. And then that will
Mm.
appear every so often. And in my
Mhm.
experience, the more people face these Saturnian lessons and work with them and learn to do so,
Mhm.
then the Saturn dates, as Saturn comes for your chart and you get older, they get better and better and better, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, here comes anxiety again. Oh, okay, I've danced with anxiety. And
Yep.
so then they can actually become successful times, like quote unquote, like
Mhm.
even like joyful times, because the
Yes.
human has evolved and been trying to work on this karmic lesson. That's why I think of karmic lesson as Saturn. It's synonymous with Saturn.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Very delicious the way you explained all that. And
Oh
also
my God.
very empowering. Not like, oh my God, Saturn's coming. I'm feeling really scared. No, it's, oh, I'm going to step into my power around this. I've done this before. This is, let's have some more tea, Saturn.
I love that. And then like it's like, oh, let me go to an astrologer and find out. Let's piecemeal that lesson together so I can
Yeah.
prepare and make it go well,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the
Beautiful.
beauty of. Okay, pick another. This is so much fun. Pick another planet.
Okay, I love, let's go to ebullient Jupiter. I love
Ooh.
Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. Really relate to Jupiter. I feel I have a Jupiter. Um, Jupiter has two favorite signs. One of his favorite signs is Sagittarius, and that's where he is for me. And he also, in the past, in like ancient ruling time, loved being in Pisces as well. So it's a really expansive energy, and Jupiter's the king. It's the benevolent king. Um, when you are having a Jupiter, well, I can't make a sweeping generalization that having a Jupiter transit is always wonderful, because if you have Jupiter transiting your Saturn or your Pluto, it makes things bigger that it touches. So that can be a little bit like, wait, I don't actually want any more Saturnian energy or Plutonian energy. Jupiter, can you give me a break? But it can be like if he comes and sits on your sun, it's like, oh, I feel really expansive and lovely. Or if he sits on your Mercury, you're like, I feel like writing, or I want to start a podcast, or I want to go on YouTube and make a channel. Like it can be very, and it just feels really like I want to take a bite out of him when I see him. He's just delicious. It feels delicious to me. I don't know what comes up for you.
That's such a phenomenal description. Yes. I mean, yes to all the things you said. Yeah, Jupiter, it is just good luck.
Hmm.
Sometimes, like you said, too much in excess, depending
Hmm.
upon what's happening. And so, it's also, again, helpful when you know about your chart,
Hmm.
like, oh, this is an area where Jupiter is. I have a lot of flow and
Hmm.
really easeful karma. And
Hmm.
yet I got to be careful a little bit too, not to go past the point, right, of excess with
Yes.
it. And then it's also, I find with people, where they like to go when no one's looking. You know what I mean? Like I have Jupiter in
Mm.
Pisces, so a
Yeah.
nice relationship like you do that's easeful
Yeah.
in the 12th house. So it's like,
Mm.
where do I go when no one's looking? I'm like meditating. I'm like,
Oh,
doing psychic stuff. Like that's fun for me, right? It's where
wow.
where's their fun? That's what I think. Where's their fun?
Totally.
So for you, what do you feel like? Is that
For
true?
me, yeah. Oh my God. Well, my Jupiter is in Sagittarius in the fifth house. So you're the one you used this. And so there's 12 houses in every chart, which we probably won't get to the houses right now, everybody. But,
The last
with,
episode we did together, 2 episodes rather ago, we did. So look for
we did,
Natalie's
didn't we?
episode,
Okay.
not the last one she was on, but 2 times ago, and I'll try to link it in the show notes too.
Okay, amazing. So when the fifth house, my Jupiter's in the fifth house, which is, and Kilkenny is the person who used the word creative projects when she heard fifth house and me. And I have three planets there in Sagittarius, which is Sagittarian energy is mutable fire. Like I have burning embers of paper on my hand, and I blow them and they sparkle out into the world, or starlight or glitter. And so with Jupiter there, first of all, I love glitter. I just have always been attracted to it. B, I am a big person. Jupiter is big and Sagittarius is mutable, so it's not contained. Like I am 5 foot, almost 5'10", and like hardy, and creative projects like it. Giant things, Jupiter, me, creative projects, singing opera. I mean, that is as grandiose as you can get. And when I feel like I am physically and energetically, astrology also allows me to say things about myself that in polite society would sound egotistical, but for me it's like scientific. Like I am a big presence, and that is in my chart, so I don't feel like sorry, I'm gonna pretend I'm not a big presence.
Yeah.
No, I actually
Well, and this is what's so affirming about astrology, because it
Mhm.
gives us this map, and it's a
Yes.
map. So we don't have to be scared of it. We have free
Mhm.
will. We can move toward these
Yes.
energies or not. But
Yes.
when we do, to me, it's just like this huge exhale. Like you said, oh, it's okay. Like
Mhm.
I am someone who has 5 planets in Libra. Half of my
I
energy
know.
is in Libra. All the people, all the pets, all the time, right? And I
Yes.
no longer have to be like, no about any of that. It's,
Mm.
and how do I find alone time with my Aries moon and get pauses from that?
Yes.
But yet that's okay. Like I'm here
Mhm.
to, when my work, which happens often, gets totally derailed because of all the one-on-one people in my life,
Yes.
I don't have to resent it. It's like, oh
Mm.
right, because I have all this Libra. This is actually my duty, my karma. This is
Mm.
this is how I'm here to serve, as well as the other work, right? So like you're saying,
Mm.
it's a way to understand yourself and to affirm who you are without feeling like you have to change.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh, wow, I can step into this even more fully, you know,
Mm. Mhm.
and,
Beautiful.
and manage myself and my life more skillfully. That's how I think of it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. It feels like it's allowing. Knowing
Mm,
the astrology invites an allowing for me, and it feels like someone's warm hand like touching my shoulder and saying yes, yes, because yes, I am this way, this is my soul blueprint, and I also have free will and I can make different choices. However, I am on purpose. You are
yes.
on purpose, and I'm sure that if you listener have never had your chart looked at before, if you were to find someone who resonates with you, um, it can be really contextualizing and validating to have someone share what comes up for them in your chart.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
that. On purpose. On
Hmm.
purpose. I'm just
Hmm.
realizing that I don't think that we connected Mercury to Gemini and Virgo. So just for
No.
listeners who are very Virgo esque and Gemini esque, looking for
Yes.
all the details, both of those signs like detail.
Mm.
So Mercury is associated with Gemini and Virgo. And
Hmm.
then who else do we have to do? Saturn. Do you want to talk about Saturn? Because that has the old school.
Oh,
And
Saturn is the ancient ruler of Saturn, everybody, is Capricorn. And no, is Aquarius, excuse me, Aquarius. So there was a time when before Uranus was discovered, Saturn had two signs with which he was associated, Capricorn and Aquarius. And now that they have discovered Uranus, Uranus has become the ruling planet of Aquarius. And Saturn is really just loves being in Capricorn. I really feel I really feel Capricorny with Saturn. It's hard for me to lean into the old Aquarian energy of Saturn and Aquarius. But is that what you were meaning for me to
yes, thank
expound on?
you.
Okay.
So helpful. Yeah, because people will get
Hmm.
confused. They'll say, I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
sure people say it's you, right? Well, I've heard two different things. Well,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, today, modern day astrology
Yes.
still Virgo, Gemini are both associated with Mercury, but like a
Yes.
recap, as Natalie said so well, in olden days, it used to be that Aquarius was Capricorn. The way that I
Mm-hmm.
have come to peace in my own mind,
Yeah.
because this is a thing, listeners, like it all has to be helpful and make sense to you, right? Because
Yeah.
if the story and the narrative feels authentic and true for you, then it's actually helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I think about it is Aquarians, they're all about being rebellious and they're rule breakers.
Mm.
However, in my experience, they're actually obsessed with rules secretly, because in order to
Yeah.
break a rule, you have to understand a rule. And
Yes.
so that's why I feel like it used to be Aquarius with Saturn, because Saturn, right, has the rings, its rules, its boundaries, its
Yeah.
constriction, right? So that's how I
Yeah.
think of it. And like you said, Capricorn's so easy to think of it. You know, it's associated with Saturn because
Yeah.
Capricorn is such stern kind of energy and, you know, success and step by step and that
That's
way. So
beautiful. Yeah,
so
Aquarius needs Saturn to have created the box for it to explode with Uranus. Okay,
so brilliantly
got it.
put. Brilliantly put. Brilliant. Brilliant. See, Mercury and the Sun
That was quick.
conjunct, her mind just blows it out, says it so everyone understands it. So good. Okay, so now we can go into, let's say, some of the more copacetic, sweeter planets,
Yes.
again, that are energies within every person listening. So,
Mm.
where do you want to go now?
How about we go to Neptune?
Interesting choice.
Which is, I mean, that was, it's not always, I like Neptune Neptune and I are friendly because Neptune, modern ruler, rules Pisces. So, and I have a lot of Piscean energy. So here we are hanging out with Poseidon, the god of the deepest waters. And Poseidon can go to the parts of the oceans that our machines are not able to go because our machines will be crushed by the pressure. And there is so much mysterious ocean realm on this planet that has never been explored. So it's a diving into the mystery with Neptune. It's a diving when you're having a Neptune. I was a bunch of years ago, I was having a Neptune transit over my son, and I was at an office job, and my boss said, Natalie, I feel like you're not even here. And I actually answered, I was like, I'm not. Now, I did not say I'm on Neptune, but I really was on Neptune. I was in another realm in like I was in outer space, like daydreaming, really in the ethers, in the dream world, in the imagination, in the creativity. And it was pleasant for me, but it's not particularly conducive to being productive. So that when you're having a Neptune transit, which we are all having collectively right now, it's quite intense. There can be this feeling of, wow, I just want to lie in bed and space out and just
Mm-hmm.
dream.
Or if
What do you
Neptune's like
feel?
sitting on top of your sun, like I have, you know, you've got Mercury, I have
Yes.
Pluto. So like for me, like the Pluto that was huge with psychic development and finally like admitting all that and
Yes.
coming out with all that
Yes.
and really understanding that that's part of my karma. You've got this
Yes.
incredible mind and communication. Someone
Mm,
with Neptune, right? On their sun, their
yeah.
personality, their sun, right? They'd be a person that has incredible imagination, right?
Yeah.
Incredible vision and envisioning a world we can't even see, right? Or creativity off the
Yes.
hook. A
Yes.
painter or right? So just an
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Neptune, well, it's so fascinating because I'm just such a fan of studying and reading and just a consummate student.
Yeah, you
And
are.
when I read when I read that Neptune was founded at the same year as anesthesia was discovered, that blew my mind.
Oh my
Right? Did you
gosh!
know that?
That makes perfect sense. I had
Perfect
no
sense.
idea. Oh
Just
my
like
goddess.
Pluto was
Mm-hmm.
discovered in the same few years that psychoanalysts, you know,
Yeah.
Freud claimed and
Yes.
coined psychology
Yes.
and psychoanalytic,
Yes.
that the atomic bomb was dropped,
Mm.
all of the
Mm-hmm.
same, right, atomic
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
Just like
Mm.
Uranus
Mm-hmm.
was discovered during the French Revolution. It's incredible, right?
Whoa.
Like revolution, Aquarian
Yes.
energy. So that's just a
Yes.
little astrology
Wow.
trivia that I like to think about in my studies.
Oh my gosh, you're such a scholar.
Oh,
I'm not like that. Oh, you have your South Node in Gemini. You came in knowing how to, you came, you came in knowing how to be a scholar. Like you're like, okay, I'm going to just get more and more information. And also yeah, okay, I see. I need more. Give me more
totally.
data. Yeah, I
Information.
don't have any planets in Gemini.
That's so
Yeah, but
great. So back to where were
Neptune,
we? Neptune.
Neptune.
Thank you. There. That's so
That's
Neptunian. I'm like,
That was
where
so
were we?
Neptunian. We don't know where we are. We're in the great underwater seas, and we go on like these misty tangents into other realms. That was very Neptunian, that moment. So that was a good illustration.
That was a perfect, right? So knowing where Neptune is in your chart, because the truth again, listeners, is that like we all have this Neptunian energy. We have the
hmm
possibility to dream. And if you're
hmm
not daydreaming ever, if you think that's
hmm
bad, right?
hmm
You could learn, oh, well, maybe your Neptune is in Capricorn. And so
hmm
you've suppressed it or it hasn't been applauded. But
hmm
then when you work on developing a relationship with Neptune, and allowing yourself to daydream, oh, right, amazing things happen. Because when we give a seat to each planet at the table of our life, then life is much more rich and kaleidoscopic, as Natalie said and coined. I'm going to
Yes,
quote you forever.
beautiful. Yes, it feels very much. The energy of Neptune can also, an image associated with it for me is Monet's water lilies, like really impressionistic, and there's no boundaries or borders at all. It just one image blends into another. That's very Neptunian.
That's
So,
perfect. That's
yeah.
perfect. Perfect. And so, what about Venus?
Oh, Venus. Oh, Venus. Well, whenever I see anyone with Venus, a lot of Venusian energy in their charts. First of all, interestingly, like if your sun, Sun, is intertwined with Venus, usually something about you is very pleasing to others. It can be your vibration. Sometimes it actually does manifest in your physical appearance. Um, I also have experiences with, at least with my clients who are incarnate as female, they can elicit envy in others without, just because they exist. Because picture this, Venus is Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and the goddess of love. And I feel like she's also related to a sense of worth, like my own sense of worth. And so if you're walking around with so much Aphrodite energy, the people who don't have access to that or have not learned how to work with their Venus in their chart might feel really envious that you are so easily expressing that, and that part of themselves has never been given permission to say, "Hi, I'm here." We all have Venus in our
Yes.
charts somewhere, but so I'm here, but no one's paying attention to me. So that is an interesting mm, cross and a blessing and a curse of people with a lot of Venusian energy, because they can elicit envy in others.
Yes. Yes, profound. So
Hmm.
true. And I love how you talked about Venus being tied into value, our own
Mhm.
value, and then what
Yes.
we value, right? So,
Yes.
because
Yes.
people, so often in a chart reading, they want to know about their love life, they want to know about
Mhm.
money and health, right? These are all
Mhm.
human natural things to know about,
Mhm.
right? So, you would look at someone, oh, where's my Venus placement or what's
Mhm.
happening around Venus? Um, and Venus is very, in my humble experience, much about romance and where I
Mm.
and how I like to be romanced. And
Yes.
yet it's very different from libido. And so that's something,
Yes.
the more charts I've read over the last several years, that I've
Mm.
also
Mhm.
really pinpointed for people, because people so often want to know about themselves romantically and they
Yes.
liken that to their sexuality.
Mhm.
However, that's not always the case, that the
Yeah.
energy of your Venus is necessarily in tandem with the energy of your own sexuality, your libido. So let's talk about that a little bit. There's Venus, right?
Mm.
What we
Mhm.
value, our money situation, romance. And then there's Mars. Maybe that's a nice foray into
Yes.
Mars, right?
Yes. Yes.
which in my mind is a lot about libido, drive, ambition.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe, how do you think about Mars? Because we all have
I
it.
went, well, when I think about Mars, first of all, it has an arrow, like the glyph, symbol for Mars is a circle with a rather phallic pointing arrow on it. Like, I am here to penetrate. I am, people with a lot of Martian energy in their charts, can, I'm going to go, and it's also, the ancient ruling, Mars is the ancient ruler of Scorpio, which is sex, like sex. And then also Mars is the modern ruler. I don't know if it's ancient and modern, actually, but I think that's right. Yes, because then when Pluto was discovered, Pluto became the modern ruler of Scorpio, and Mars is the modern
Yes.
ruler of Aries, which is pure impulse. Aries is the energy of the sperm and the egg coming together and uniting.
Yes.
So if with this Mars energy, where Mars is in your chart, or where if you're having a Martian transit, you might feel suddenly this incredible sexual libido accessible. It's fiery. It's like, oh my gosh, I actually like had no libido for so long, and now I'm like, oh, I would really like to not necessarily procreate, but penetrate.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
distinction. I like that distinction between the Venus. Yeah, when I see Venus, I don't necessarily think libido. I think like, oh, romance, roses is a little trait, flowers, and Mars is like, hey, let's just go right to bed.
Yeah. So when you think about your love life, you'll hear like, "Oh, but like my Venus is in this." And I'm like, "Oh, but where's your Mars?" Right? Like
Right.
that's part of knowing oneself, because sometimes they're
Mm-hmm.
very simpatico, sometimes there's, contrariness, and so understanding yourself. These
Yes.
planets help us understand and know ourselves, and again, like you were talking about, not shaming ourselves, but claiming ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, I love that.
Mm.
So we've got Venus that's ruled by Libra and Taurus. So that's
Yes.
another one like Mercury that since time immemorial have kept the same ruler and two. So just
Yes.
for the listeners. So if you
Yes.
have a lot of like me, Libran energy, that means
Yeah.
you've got a lot of Venetian energy. If you have a lot of
Yeah.
Taurasian energy, well then
Mm-hmm.
you've got a lot of Venetian energy. So
Yeah. It's
that's
beautiful. With my clients who have a lot of Libra or Taurus in their charts, I always invite them to know that because Venus is the ruling planet of both of those signs, that they have the support of Aphrodite vibrating them wherever they are, like to really lean into this planetary support that they have, and know that it's almost like a guardian angel of Venus always walking with them.
That's
Feels
so
really supportive.
sweet. Wow, I love
Mm,
that. I mean, I have all this Libra, but
mm,
thank you, because that feels like really supportive and really helpful.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think about that, like if someone has Plutonian energy, like I do, I'll say, meditate or get a picture of Hades or Pluto
Yeah.
himself, depending on when you do Greek or
Yes.
Roman tradition.
Yes.
Like you're saying, if you have a lot of Venetian energy, get a picture of Venus and
Mhm.
meditate with her.
Mhm.
Make your
Mhm.
screensaver her. Like these are
Yeah, beautiful.
practical ways you can draft off this energy that's within
Yeah.
you, but in focusing it externally, it will bring it out of you from the inside
Mhm.
out and into your life,
Gorgeous.
right?
Amen. Yes.
So same thing with
Yeah.
Mercury, like put little
Yes.
coins out, like look for coins,
Mm.
ask the universe,
Mhm.
like if you have a lot of Mercury, like, okay, show me a sign, or
Yeah.
start a little altar and you yourself put coins out to invoke that mercurial prowess of speech and of
Mm.
downloading, and you can work with
Yes.
Mercury. So that's a sweet way I think you
Yes.
can work with the energies.
Beautiful. I
Did
love
we
it.
do we do we do everybody
We
in the
got
way
everybody,
planets?
which is good timing wise for me too, in terms of
Good.
picking up a child.
Yes. Well, Natalie, do you have time, like a minute or two, to do some kind of guided something to punctuate our conversation?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I would invite your listeners to lean into the fact that each one of you, whether you know your astrology or not, is absolutely supported by the planets, and you have all of these different ways in which your being, your life is vibrating with the energy of the planets and where they were when you were born. And maybe there's this invitation to allow, since my Mercury, how I communicate, and my Sun are intertwined, just like you might have certain things intertwined in your chart, maybe you can allow the frequency of my voice to allow you to feel the vibration of the planets. And Pisces is like Om, so it can be something like, if happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Oh, that was so luscious. No one has ever sung as their punctuating benediction, and that is just so life enhancing. All of my cells are dancing from that. What a voice you have.
Thank you.
Listeners, I'm sure, blown away. And that's Jupiter, friends. Jupiter expanding, right? That energy.
Yes.
Thank
In
you for that.
in the house of creative projects, right?
I love
Yes.
it. Well, Natalie, where can folks find out about you, your amazing work, your readings that you offer are so incredible, and you do so many downloads online too on socials. So yeah, tell folks.
If you'd like to make an appointment with me, please go find my website at natalielevinastrology.com. You may follow me on Instagram at Natalie Levin Astrology, and I am on Facebook at Natalie Levin. And I do have a YouTube channel. It's Natalie Levin Astrology, and I even have a Patreon page. I have 8 patrons, and that is Natalie Levin Astrology too. So it's pretty uniform all around. Natalie Levin Astrology.
Amazing, amazing. Well, what I think I'm going to do is let's say goodbye because you have a child to pick up. And then I will mention a little bit later, I'll record an outro, and this will be on YouTube, the folks who watch this on YouTube. But I want to honor being a mother because I know what that feeling is like. And I would just want to say thank you so much for being here. We have so many gifts, meaning associated with the podcast. I've got a building your intuition amazing toolkit that I made recently. Folks are loving. So that's a modernmystic.love/map. We've got patreon.com/modernmystic podcast. And Natalie is also offering all our monthly Mystic members, so generous, Natalie, thank you, for a 45-minute reading with her instead of 150 for 111, right?
Yes.
That's amazing. So I will record the other gifts that we have for friends after you pick up your beautiful boy. But I just want to say, Natalie, thank you so much for your wisdom. You are brilliant. You are electric. Speaking of electricity, you shine so much light and give so much passion. And I feel more inspired just having had this conversation. So thank you for being here with us again today.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled this worked out. What a treat.
Total pure dessert. Namaste.
Namaste.